Hey, what's up everyone, Raging Golden Eagle here, having way too much fun as always. And since this is most likely going to be the first video of the new year, Happy New Year! And what better way to kick off a new current year than to kind of cover and expand on something that was talked about many current years ago, in the hopes that it may serve as a warning for where we may be headed in the future. Today's topic, ideological lenses. Sargon actually did a video on this a long time ago, like many current years ago, back when his channel then had about as many subs as mine does now, as a response to a deluge of feminist and SJW articles where they kept referring to looking at everything through a feminist lens or a social justice lens and just any type of ideology you could think of. Which really just destroys whatever enjoyment you may get out of something, because you're too busy trying to look at it through some ideological lens to actually enjoy what you're experiencing. But either way, I'm bringing this up now because I seem to have noticed our side actually kind of ramp this up themselves recently. And now don't get me wrong, for the many years I've been here on YouTube, I've seen them doing it for a while. Like for instance, Homer Simpson, that's the oft-used example among the Red Pill community. Homer Simpson is often thrown around as the example of how men are portrayed in the media nowadays. You can no longer have a respectable man, they're always just some goof and his wife always has to clean up his messes and tell him what to do. And for the record, I actually liked Homer Simpson as a character. I thought it was pretty funny. But I could understand that concern if that's the type of character all fathers were being portrayed as. But yeah, my personal views on that aside, I know this has been going on for a while, but I've really been seeing an uptick in this recently. And I know this is probably because after years of having the other side just shoehorn their political agenda into everything, it's getting pretty hard to just take things at face value anymore. And a huge negative side effect of that is we've all gotten so paranoid now we may be looking for this stuff where none exists. Or if it does exist, maybe it doesn't even matter. Like take a look at the original Star Trek and The Next Generation, for instance. If you look at how the United Federation of Planets operates, it's basically packed to the brim with socialist propaganda if you want to look at it that way. Yet I've known plenty of far right-wing Trekkies that seem to either completely ignore or overlook this. They just didn't care. Because that really wasn't the focus of the show. Me personally, I don't consider the socialism in Star Trek to be propaganda any more than I'd consider basing a story in a functional capitalist society to be capitalist propaganda. It all depends on how you treat it. If every episode they couldn't shut up about how great socialism is, oh yeah, you got a point. But other than that, we're dealing with fiction here. It's fantasy. It's okay to imagine a world where socialism can actually function. As long as you don't try to convince people it's actually possible, we're all good. But you know what? Maybe this is the key issue right here. The original Star Trek and The Next Generation, they were good. So good that even if they did contain overt propaganda and messages, which I didn't notice, but I'm quite sure if I watched it now I could, even if they existed, the show was so good we didn't even notice. But nowadays, I mean, if something is just absolute dog shit, there's nothing good in there to keep your attention, I guess I can excuse people for just looking for other things to hate about it. Hell, just look at Star Trek Discovery. I think they got that acronym perfect, STD, because that's what it is. Or Star Wars The Last Jedi, for those of you who've seen it. I can't say anything about it because I haven't seen it and I don't think I plan on it either. If they had anything good going for them, people wouldn't be specifically looking for things to complain about. And hell, about as long as I've been talking about Land of the Lustrous, which all you guys need to go watch and buy the manga by the way, I've pretty much been saying from the start that this show is basically like what the SJWs would create if they were actually good and talented. Just about all of the main characters are some genderless, immortal gem people. And I've actually had people that I say that to say, oh, in that case, I'm not interested in it anymore. Because they just can't get over their red pill lens or whatever you want to call it. Honestly, from the first episode, not only did that never bother me, but I didn't even notice until I was thinking about it after the fact. Because it was so good, I didn't care. And it would honestly be kind of hypocritical of me to complain about it too, because I've always said things like diversity are great when they happened organically. And that's the case in this specific show. Due to the nature of these characters, gender just doesn't exist in their society. As such, it never comes up. That right there is proof that this is not an SJW work, by the way. Because if SJWs had written this storyline, despite the fact that these characters don't even know what male and female are, really, they'd never be able to shut up about gender roles. It really would not make any sense if this was written by SJWs. But the way it's written, everything is just natural and organic and isn't shoehorned in. And that's the important part. But yeah, we really gotta be careful or else we're gonna fall into the Anita Sarkeesian mindset. Everything is sexist, everything is racist, everything is homophobic, and you have to point it all out. Except in our case, we'd replace a few terms like everything would be a misandrist or something. And this is one of the things I really like about diversity in comics is because he's been pretty honest about this. He's said before that he now has what he coined as black woman fatigue. And what he means by that is every time he's reading a comic and some new black woman character comes in, he just automatically is like, oh great, another diversity quota stereotype. And this is a guy who grew up reading comics when Storm was leading the X-Men, mind you. So I kinda gotta respect him for admitting that that's what he thinks now. And that's sad because there are some legitimately good characters now that have to try a whole lot harder to earn their place. Because public perception is already against them from the start. And now, I'm not going to tell you guys what you should say or what you should think or whatnot. That's your business. But all I'm going to do is ask that before you say something, then at least think about it. Because everything we've been doing to the other side all these years, they can now turn around and do the same shit back to us, you know. Take a look at, for example, the Bechdel test. People don't talk about it that much anymore, but there were a few years when the feminists basically considered that as the end-all be-all test to determine how woman-friendly a TV show or a work of fiction is. But then that entire argument just completely fell apart, which is probably why we don't hear about it that much anymore. Because our side kept pointing out that other stuff that these feminists liked and considered good, that fails the Bechdel test. And even funnier, you know what passes the Bechdel test? Lesbian porn and fan service shows aimed at men. So you guys really have to think before you start flinging around accusations because it can and will be used against you. If you say some new show or movie is misandrist because this thing happened, you better be damn careful that no movie you like and have said nothing but good things about in the past doesn't also have that happening. Because your opponents are going to catch on to this and they're going to point it out. Oh, if this thing that we like is misandrist because this happened, what about your favorite movie that you've admitted to? Because I remember the same thing happening there. Kind of ties back in nicely with what I said a few minutes ago, doesn't it? If you really like something and find it good, you're not going to be looking for things to hate about it. So it's entirely possible you would have overlooked some things. But either way, I've rambled on this topic a lot longer than I intended to. So if nothing else, just please watch yourself, be careful about looking at everything through an ideological lens, and try not to become the next Sarkeesian. That's all I gotta say, guys. Thanks for listening.